Admiral Jessica Parker stood motionless before the massive holographic display, her weathered features illuminated by the pulsing red warning indicators. The Deep Space Monitoring Network had never triggered a Class 1 alert before, not in all her 15 years of service. Yet here she was, watching as hundreds of unknown vessels tore their way through spacetime, leaving devastating ripples in their wake. "Admiral, the quantum analysis is complete." Lieutenant Commander James Cooper's voice broke through her concentration. "The vessels are using an unstable form of faster-than-light travel. It's primitive, but incredibly dangerous." Parker nodded, her eyes never leaving the display, like giving antimatter technology to a civilization that's barely mastered nuclear fission. She tapped a series of commands into her neural interface, and the hologram zoomed in on the leading vessels. "They're going to tear apart half the sector if they keep this up." The emergency meeting chamber of the Terran Defense Council hummed with tense energy as humanity's highest-ranking military and scientific leaders filed in. The crystalline walls, typically transparent, had shifted to an opaque obsidian black, signaling the highest level of security protocols in effect. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation," Parker began, but before she could continue, the chamber's doors burst open. Dr. Michael Roberts, head of the Temporal Mechanics Division, rushed in, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Admiral, council members, you need to see this immediately." Roberts bypassed the standard security protocols, directly linking his neural feed to the room's main display. "We've run 17 simulations of their FTL wake patterns. The results are catastrophic." The hologram shifted, showing a cascade of temporal fractures spreading out from the incoming fleet's trajectory. In the simulation, these fractures expanded exponentially, creating a web of space-time distortions that would eventually reach Earth's solar system. "How long?" Counselor Wilson's voice cut through the murmurs of concern. "At their current velocity and trajectory, they'll reach the outer marker of our quarantine zone in 72 hours. Roberts replied, his voice grave. "But the temporal damage will begin affecting our monitoring stations in less than 24. Parker watched as the council members exchanged worried glances. Humanity had encountered numerous civilizations before, but most had been at similar or lower technological levels. This was different. A vast empire wielding dangerous technology they barely understood. What are their capabilities? The question came from General Martinez, her cybernetic eye glowing faintly in the darkened room. Lieutenant Commander Cooper stepped forward, projecting a detailed analysis. Their fleet consists of approximately 300 capital ships and numerous support vessels. Their technology is interesting, advanced in some areas, but dangerously underdeveloped in others. They've somehow achieved FTL travel without mastering basic gravitational field manipulation. It's like they've been developing their technology in the wrong order. They're going to kill themselves, Roberts interjected, and they might take a good portion of this sector with them. Admiral Parker raised her hand, silencing the growing discussion. Then we have no choice. Initiate the quarantine protocol. Full spectrum. The words hung heavy in the air. Earth had maintained quarantine zones around developing civilizations before, but never for one this advanced or numerous. The Empire, as they called themselves in their broadcasting signals, wouldn't take kindly to being denied access to what they presumably saw as their right to expand. And if they resist? Counselor Wilson asked, though everyone knew the answer. Parker's expression hardened. Then we show them why Earth is the guardian of this sector. Prepare the defense grid. I want the gravimetric containment platforms online within 6 hours, and someone get me a direct line to the diplomatic corps. If we're going to stop an empire, we better be ready to explain why. As the council chamber erupted into activity, Parker turned back to the holographic display. The Empire's fleet continued its approach, unaware that they were heading straight toward the most advanced civilization in this part of the galaxy. Let's hope they're better at listening than they are at FTL physics, she muttered, watching as Earth's defensive systems began powering up across the solar system. The Imperial flagship Eternal Glory burst through another fold in spacetime, its wake leaving shimmering tears in the fabric of reality. On its command deck, High Commander Dex Thor adjusted his ceremonial cape, mandibles clicking with anticipation as he prepared to address the primitive world before him. "My technicians assure me they can receive our transmissions," he announced to his bridge crew. "Prepare the standard absorption declaration. Let us show these humans how generous the Empire can be to its newest subjects." Colonel Emily Hayes watched the Imperial transmission from Earth's diplomatic command center, her expression neutral despite the growing concern among her staff. The message was being broadcast on all frequencies, a grandiose declaration filled with promises of protection and advancement. "They'd really have no idea, do they?" she muttered, turning to her diplomatic team. "Dr. Marcus, what's your assessment of their language patterns?" Dr. William Marcus, Earth's leading xenolinguist, looked up from his neural interface. "Their terminology choices are revealing. Absorption instead of alliance, subjects rather than citizens. They're so convinced of their superiority that they haven't even considered the possibility that we might refuse." Hayes nodded, then straightened her uniform. "Well, let's disabuse them of that notion. Prepare our response. All languages, including their imperial dialect. Let's show them we've been studying them longer than they've known we existed." The response was delivered with precision timing, just as the Imperial fleet crossed the first warning boundary. Thousands of holographic buoys activated simultaneously, creating a vast grid of light that stretched across the Empire's path. Each buoy broadcast the same message in 20 different languages. "Attention Imperial Fleet. You are entering a restricted zone under the protection of Earth's quarantine protocol. Your current faster-than-light technology poses a severe risk to local spacetime stability. For your safety and the safety of this sector, you must halt your advance and await further instructions." On the Eternal Glories Bridge, Dex Thor's mandibles twitched in disbelief. "They dare to restrict us." "Us." He turned to his science officer. "Scan their defenses. Show me what primitive technologies they think will stop the mighty Imperial fleet." Lieutenant Commander James Cooper, monitoring from Earth's defense platform Sierra, allowed himself a small smile as he watched the Imperial scans wash harmlessly against their quantum camouflage. "They're trying to brute force their way through our security networks," he reported to Admiral Parker. "Should we show them a little more?" Parker's response came through the neural link. "Give them a peek, Commander. Just enough to make them think twice." Cooper initiated the revealed defense protocol. Across the warning boundary, previously invisible platforms began to shimmer into view. Each platform was a masterpiece of Earth's gravitational manipulation technology, capable of redirecting entire fleets without firing a single shot. The Imperial Science Officer's report sent a wave of unease through the Eternal Glories command deck. "High Commander, we cannot penetrate their defensive screens. And what we can detect suggests technology far beyond our understanding." "Impossible." Dex Thor slammed his command gauntlet against his chair. "They are a single world. We are the Empire. We span 1,000 systems." "High Commander," his communications officer interrupted, voice trembling slightly. "We're receiving a direct transmission. It's from their diplomatic corps. They're requesting to speak with you personally." On the main screen, Colonel Hayes appeared, her image crystal clear despite the vast distance. "High Commander Dex Thor, I am Colonel Emily Hayes of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. We understand this situation may be difficult to accept. However, we have monitored your civilization's development for some time. Your current technological path is unsustainable and dangerous, not just to you, but to all life in this sector." Dex Thor's response was cut short as his science officer frantically reported new readings. The humans' defensive platforms were generating gravitational fields that could completely neutralize their ship's engines, not through force or violence, but through precise manipulation of the very forces that held the universe together. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Dex Thor felt something he had never expected to experience when encountering a single world. Fear, not of destruction or defeat, but of the dawning realization that perhaps the Empire wasn't as advanced as they had always believed. The young Imperial pilot Kexri hadn't meant to cross the boundary. A minor miscalculation in his scout ship's unstable FTL drive had sent him tumbling through spacetime, straight past the warning buoys. As his ship stabilized, he found himself staring at something impossible. A partial Dyson sphere under construction. Countless automated builders weaving solar collection panels around a distant star. Scout 7, you have breached quarantine. A calm voice transmitted in perfect Imperial dialect. Please remain still. We're deploying recovery platforms for your safety. Captain David Anderson watched from the bridge of the EDS Hyperion as his crew coordinated the rescue operation. Poor kid probably thinks we're going to vaporize him, he mused, observing the scout ship's erratic energy readings. Engineering, how's that drive looking? Critical, Captain. Chief Engineer Lisa Reynolds reported. Their containment field is barely holding. One more jump, and that ship would have torn itself apart. Anderson nodded grimly. Deploy the quantum nets. Full containment protocol. The space around the Imperial scout ship shimmered as invisible fields materialized into a gleaming web of energy. The nets, designed to safely capture and stabilize even the most dangerous vessels, gently wrapped around the scout ship. Kexri watched in amazement as his ship's failing systems stabilized. The humans weren't attacking. They were saving him. His wonder turned to awe as he glimpsed more of Earth's true technological level through his ship's sensors. By the Emperor's crown, he whispered, we're children playing with stellar fire. Back at the main fleet, High Commander Dex Thor was facing a growing crisis. His young officers were becoming increasingly vocal about the foolishness of challenging Earth's quarantine. Silence, he roared across the command deck. I will not have cowardice in my fleet. This isn't about cowardice, High Commander. His first officer, Mextel, dared to speak. The humans have shown us nothing but patience and concern for our safety. Perhaps we should. The deck shuddered as Dex Thor slammed his command staff down. We attack. Full fleet formation. Show these humans the might of the Empire. But as the Imperial ships began to move forward, space itself seemed to come alive. Commander Maria Thompson's stealth fleet emerged from dimensional pocket space, their ships appearing from seemingly nowhere in a perfect containment pattern. Imperial Fleet, this is Commander Thompson of the Earth Defense Force. Her transmission cut through all Imperial communications. Your FTL drives are destabilizing. For your own safety, we are implementing a Level 1 containment field. Please power down your engines. Dex Thor watched in horror as his mighty fleet was rendered immobile. No weapons were fired, no violence was dealt. The humans simply reached out and turned off their ships as easily as one might power down a child's toy. From the Hyperion's bridge, Anderson observed the containment operation. Commander Thompson's timing is impeccable as always, he commented to his crew. Status of the Imperial Fleet. All ships contained, Captain, his tactical officer reported. Their drives are safely powered down, and we're reading minimal resistance. Though, you might want to see this. The main display showed feeds from within several Imperial vessels. Young officers were actively standing down their own commanders, refusing to fight against what they now recognized as a vastly superior civilization. In the scout ship, now safely aboard the Hyperion, Kexri was speaking with Earth's scientists. Our teachers always told us we were the pinnacle of civilization, he admitted. But your technology, it's like comparing a stone axe to a fusion reactor. That's why we maintain the quarantine, Dr. Reynolds explained kindly. Rapid technological advancement without proper understanding leads to disaster. We've seen it happen before. As the situation stabilized, Admiral Parker received reports from across the fleet. The show of force had worked, not through violence or destruction, but through a demonstration of such advanced technology that even the proudest Imperial officers had to acknowledge their relative position. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is show them how far they have yet to go. Parker reflected, watching as Earth's ships maintained their protective formation around the humbled Imperial fleet. Begin preparation for diplomatic talks. It's time to explain why we're out here, protecting the stars from those not yet ready to dance among them. General Robert Maxwell stood before the gathered Imperial delegation in Earth's diplomatic center, its crystalline walls displaying a real-time map of the galaxy. Hundreds of glowing points marked civilizations under Earth's protection, each at different stages of development. What you're seeing, Maxwell explained to the stunned Imperial representatives, is our current monitoring network. Each light represents a civilization we're guiding, protecting, or observing. He gestured, and the display zoomed in on a particular sector. This was the Proxima civilization, 50 years ago. They achieved FTL travel before mastering gravitational physics. The Imperial Science Minister, Vexlor, leaned forward. What happened to them? Their first colony ship created a cascade of temporal fractures. We couldn't reach them in time. Maxwell's voice carried the weight of old regret. That's why we maintain the quarantine zones. That's why we're here. In another chamber of the facility, Dr. Amanda Foster was conducting a more intimate briefing with a group of younger Imperial officers, including the rescued pilot Kexri. The room's holographic displays showed the progression of various civilizations' technological development. Technology isn't just about capability, Foster explained, manipulating the display to show different development paths. It's about understanding. Every advancement should build upon a solid foundation of scientific principles. Your empire's development path. She brought up their technological timeline. It's dangerously imbalanced. Lieutenant Kate Wilson, monitoring from her security post, noticed something odd in the Imperial officer's neural patterns. Dr. Foster, she transmitted privately. 3 of the officers are recording everything, likely for unauthorized transmission back to their fleet. Foster didn't miss a beat. Instead of calling them out, she smoothly transitioned the presentation to showcase Earth's information-sharing protocols, which is why we maintain complete transparency with civilizations ready to receive specific knowledge. No need for espionage when open dialogue is available. The guilty officers shifted uncomfortably, realizing their attempted spying had been detected and gracefully acknowledged without confrontation. This display of both technological superiority and diplomatic finesse only reinforced the gap between their civilizations. Meanwhile, in the main conference chamber, High Commander Dex Thor was struggling to maintain his composure as Earth's representatives outlined a proposed development assistance program. You expect us to accept supervision, to admit our inferiority. He sputtered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Ambassador Sarah Matthews responded with calculated patience. Not inferiority, High Commander. Different stages of development. Consider, would you give plasma weapons to a civilization that hasn't discovered electricity? We are not children. Dex Thor protested. No, Matthews agreed. You're not. You're a proud and capable civilization that has achieved remarkable things. But you're using technologies you don't fully understand, and that poses a risk to everyone in this sector of space. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent message. One of the Imperial warships had detected a forming temporal rift, a delayed consequence of their unstable FTL travel. Earth's response was immediate and efficient. Through the chamber's windows, the Imperial delegation watched in awe as Earth's defense platforms seamlessly coordinated, generating a controlled gravitational field that gently collapsed the dangerous anomaly. It was like watching master artists at work, but their canvas was the fabric of space-time itself. That, Professor James Henderson noted quietly, is what happens when you understand the physics behind your technology. No emergency, no panic, just precise application of understood principles. As the day's sessions concluded, Foster noticed Kexri lingering behind. The young pilot approached her with obvious internal conflict. "Doctor," he began hesitantly, "some of us, we've been discussing things. There are many in the Empire, especially among the younger generation, who would welcome Earth's guidance. But our leadership," Foster smiled encouragingly, Change is never easy, especially for those who believe they have the most to lose. But tell me, what's more important? Maintaining the illusion of supremacy or learning to dance among the stars without tearing them apart? The young Imperial officer looked out at Earth's gleaming cityscape, where gravity-defying architecture merged seamlessly with natural landscapes. "We have so much to learn," he whispered, more to himself than to Foster. So very much to learn. Admiral William Harrison's meditation was interrupted by the blaring of emergency alerts throughout the Earth Defense Station Odyssey. The holographic display materialized instantly, showing a group of Imperial warships breaking formation. "Status report," he commanded, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the command center. "6 Imperial dreadnoughts have engaged their FTL drives, sir," Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported. "They're attempting to bypass the quarantine line using some kind of modified drive configuration." Harrison's eyes narrowed. The hardliners were making their move, just as intelligence had predicted. "Deploy Response Fleet Gamma. Contact 2nd Lieutenant Thomas Reed's squadron. Tell them to prepare for emergency stabilization protocols." The rogue Imperial ships tore through spacetime, their modified drives leaving devastating ripples in their wake. They had sacrificed safety for raw power, hoping to punch through Earth's defenses before they could respond. They were wrong. Reed's squadron emerged from quantum space directly in the path of the Imperial ships. His vessels, sleek and angular, moved with impossible grace. "This is 2nd Lieutenant Reed to Imperial vessels," he broadcast. "Your drive modifications are causing critical instabilities. Please power down immediately." The response came in the form of weapons fire, energy beams that Reed's ships simply absorbed, their advanced shielding converting the attack into usable power. "They're not going to listen, sir," Reed reported to Harrison, "and their drive signatures are becoming dangerously erratic." Harrison nodded grimly. "Implement the preservation protocol. Those ships are about to tear themselves apart." The lead Imperial dreadnought's engines began to overload, its desperate gambit backfiring spectacularly. Reed's ship dove toward it, extending its quantum field. "This is going to be close," he muttered, his crew working in perfect synchronization. Time seemed to slow as the dreadnought's drive reached critical levels. Reed's ship wrapped it in a containment field seconds before it would have detonated, saving not only the Imperial crew, but also preventing a catastrophic cascade of temporal fractures. On the bridge of the captured dreadnought, Commander Yexthor watched in disbelief as human engineers casually disabled the weapon systems he had spent years developing. "How?" he demanded. "How did you contain a quantum detonation?" Major Elizabeth Morgan, leading the engineering team, didn't look up from her work. "The same way we contain stellar plasma for our power plants," she replied matter-of-factly. "Understanding the underlying physics makes it relatively straightforward." Back on the Odyssey, Harrison was meeting with the Imperial fleet's progressive faction. "Your compatriots' actions have forced our hand," he explained, displaying the data from the failed attack. "We'll have to accelerate the implementation of safety protocols." Young Imperial officers watched in fascination as Major Morgan's team demonstrated proper drive containment procedures. What had seemed like impossible magic hours ago was being explained with clear, understandable principles. "The foundation of any advanced civilization," Morgan lectured as she worked, "is not the technology itself, but the understanding behind it. Your current drives work, yes, but without understanding why they work, you can't properly control them." In the medical bay, Reed was visiting the Imperial crew he had saved. Many were shocked to learn that the humans had risked their own ships to prevent the dreadnought's destruction. "You could have simply destroyed us," one Imperial engineer noted. "It would have been safer." Reed smiled. "That's not how we do things. Earth's role isn't to destroy, but to preserve and protect, even from yourselves, if necessary." As the day's events were analyzed, Harrison received a message from Admiral Parker. The attempted breach had actually strengthened their position. More Imperial ships were requesting to join the progressive faction, having seen both Earth's technological superiority and their commitment to preservation rather than destruction. Sometimes, Harrison mused, watching the Imperial crews beginning their first proper lessons in gravitational physics, the best way to win a fight is to refuse to have one in the first place. Major Morgan, overhearing him, nodded in agreement. They came expecting either submission or confrontation. Instead, we offered them understanding. Knowledge, freely given, is often the most powerful weapon of all. Professor Daniel Walker stood in the archive chamber, its vast holographic displays showing the tragic history of the Proxima civilization. Before him, a delegation of Imperial scientists watched in stunned silence as the records played out. 15 years ago, Walker began, his voice heavy with remembered grief. The Proxima people achieved faster than light travel. Like you, they developed it before mastering fundamental gravitational physics. This is what happened to their first colony fleet. The display showed a massive fleet of ships, their design beautiful but fatally flawed. As they engaged their drives, space itself seemed to tear. The resulting cascade of temporal fractures consumed their homeworld in minutes. We detected the problem too late, Walker continued. By the time our rescue ships arrived, their entire star system was caught in a time dilation field. For them, centuries pass in what we experience as days. We still haven't found a way to safely reverse the effect. Captain Rachel Bennett, stationed at the back of the chamber, noticed the Imperial scientists' mandibles trembling. Their species' sign of deep emotional distress. The similarity between Proxima's drive design and their own was unmistakable. This is why we maintain the quarantine zones, Bennett added softly. This is why we watch and wait and sometimes intervene. Not out of a desire for control, but from a duty to protect. In another section of the facility, lead scientist Michael Roberts was showing a younger group of Imperial officers the monitoring stations that track developing civilizations across their sector of the galaxy. Each civilization follows its own path, Roberts explained, manipulating the holographic display. Some develop social technologies before physical ones. Others focus on biological advancement before mechanical. There's no single right way to progress. He brought up a comparison chart. But there are dangerous ways. Your empire's path. He highlighted their development timeline. You achieved spaceflight before fully understanding orbital mechanics. FTL travel before mastering gravitational fields. Each step built on shaky foundations. The Imperial Youth Movement's leader, Zexley, stepped forward. Our teachers always told us that practical achievement matters more than theoretical understanding. That the Empire's way was to forge ahead boldly. Roberts nodded sympathetically. Boldness is admirable, but without understanding, it's also dangerous. Imagine building a skyscraper without understanding structural engineering. It might stand for a while, but eventually. In the diplomatic wing, First Contact Specialist Jennifer Hayes was dealing with a more immediate crisis. Several Imperial information networks had begun broadcasting accusations that Earth was lying about its protectorate status. Your claims are impossible to verify, the Imperial media representative insisted. How can you prove you've been watching us, guiding other civilizations? Hayes smiled and activated her neural link. The room's walls transformed into a historical display, showing thousands of carefully documented interactions between Earth and developing civilizations. We've been doing this for centuries, she explained. Every intervention, every observation, every decision, all carefully recorded and preserved. She brought up footage of Earth's first encounter with the Empire's scout ships, decades before the Empire even knew Earth existed. The Imperial representative's mandibles clicked in surprise as he watched his own people's early ventures into space, seen from Earth's perspective. All this time, you were watching over us. Protecting you, Hayes corrected gently. From others, and sometimes from yourselves, just as we protect hundreds of other developing civilizations. As the day's revelations sank in, the Imperial Youth Movement began secret meetings in their quarters. Zexley addressed his fellow young officers, their determination growing. "We've seen the truth today," he declared. "Earth doesn't want to conquer us or hold us back. They're trying to prevent us from destroying ourselves through ignorance." The movement's chief scientist, Mexera, added, "Their technology, their understanding, it's beyond anything we imagined. And they're offering to share it with us, to teach us, if we're willing to learn properly." Back in the archive chamber, Professor Walker was concluding his presentation. "The choice before you isn't whether to submit or resist. It's whether to learn from others' mistakes or repeat them. Earth stands ready to guide, to teach, to help. But only if you're willing to acknowledge that there's something to learn." Director Christopher Hayes stood before the Earth Oversight Council, his holographic presentation showing the latest developments in the Imperial fleet. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected the tension in the room as he delivered his report. "The Empire stands at a crossroads," Hayes began, manipulating the display to show the growing divide within their ranks. "Their fleet has effectively split into two factions. The progressives, led by their younger officers, are actively seeking our guidance. The traditionalists, however." The display shifted to show the hardliner ships, their modified drives still threatening to destabilize local space-time. Dr. Jennifer Martinez stepped forward, her quantum analytics floating beside her. "We've developed a solution," she announced, bringing up complex mathematical models. "The Gradual Integration Protocol, a structured approach to safely upgrading their technology while simultaneously teaching them the underlying principles." In the Imperial flagship's conference room, the situation was reaching a boiling point. High Commander Dexthor faced growing opposition from his own officers. "You would have us bend knee to these humans," he raged, his ceremonial armor clanking as he paced. "Accept their protection like wayward children." Young Officer Kexri, now a symbol of the progressive movement, stood his ground. "I've seen their capabilities firsthand, Commander. This isn't about submission. It's about survival. About learning to use our technology safely." The debate was interrupted by alerts blaring throughout the fleet. Colonel Alexander Murphy's sensors had detected another forming temporal rift, this one directly threatening the Imperial command ship. "All ships, maintain position," Murphy broadcast, his voice steady as Earth's defense platforms moved into formation. "We're detecting critical instabilities in your primary drive cores, preparing emergency containment." The Imperial crew watched in awe as Earth's ships executed a perfect containment maneuver, their advanced gravimetric fields gently stabilizing the dangerous anomaly. But something else was happening. A small group of hardliner ships was using the distraction to prepare weapons. "Sir," Murphy's tactical officer reported, "we're detecting energy buildups in the traditionalist vessels. They're preparing to." The warning came too late. A bright flash erupted from one of the hardliner ships, aimed directly at the progressive faction's leadership. Murphy's response was instant, his ship's quantum fields redirecting the energy blast harmlessly into space. "That," Murphy announced calmly across all channels, "was your one free mistake. The next hostile action will result in immediate drive core shutdown. We're trying to prevent casualties here, not cause them." The attempted assassination had an unexpected effect. More Imperial ships began breaking away from the hardliner faction, their crews finally accepting the reality of their situation. Earth wasn't their enemy. Ignorance was. In the Earth Oversight Council chamber, Dr. Martinez presented the final phase of her integration plan. "We'll start with basic gravitational physics," she explained, showing the educational modules. "Once they understand the foundations, we can begin safely upgrading their drive systems." "And the hardliners?" a council member asked. Hayes stepped forward again. "We're offering them the same choice as everyone else. Learn and grow under guidance, or maintain their current technology level under quarantine. Either way, unsafe FTL travel in this sector ends today." Back on the Imperial command ship, Kexri and his fellow progressives were reviewing Earth's proposed development timeline. The humans had mapped out a clear path forward, one that would preserve the Empire's independence while ensuring their technological development proceeded safely. "Look at this," he told his colleagues, highlighting sections of the proposal. They're not asking us to dismantle our technology. They're offering to help us understand it, improve it, make it safer. An older imperial scientist, one who had initially opposed Earth's intervention, studied the technical specifications. This makes sense, he admitted. All these years, we've been building without truly understanding. Like children stacking blocks without knowing about gravity. As the day drew to a close, Murphy received a final report from his tactical team. The majority of the Imperial fleet had now aligned with the progressive faction. The hardliners, their support crumbling, faced a simple truth: evolution or isolation. Admiral Jessica Parker stood at the observation deck of Earth's diplomatic center, watching as the newly christened Imperial Confederation vessels prepared for departure. Their ships, now bearing the distinctive blue-green insignia of Earth's Protected Civilizations Initiative, gleamed under the light of Earth's sun. Quite a change from their arrival, wouldn't you say? Dr. Taylor Richardson joined her at the window, his research tablet displaying the successful modifications to the Imperial fleet's drive systems. Parker nodded, remembering the tension of those first encounters. From would-be conquerors to eager students, sometimes the greatest victories come without firing a shot. In the main hangar bay, Kexri, now serving as the Imperial Confederation's chief science liaison, was overseeing the installation of Earth's safety protocols in the last group of ships. The once dangerous FTL drives had been modified with proper containment systems, their power now harnessed safely. The principles are elegantly simple, once you understand them, he explained to a group of former hardliners who had finally accepted Earth's guidance. All those years, we were like people trying to control lightning without understanding electricity. Professor Walker approached the group, carrying historical records of their transformation. Your progress over these past months has been remarkable, he told them. You've achieved in weeks what some civilizations take decades to learn. Because we finally stopped fighting the truth, Kexri replied. His mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was a sign of contentment. Knowledge freely given is sweeter than power roughly taken. In the research wing, Dr. Martinez was putting the finishing touches on the technology-sharing protocols. The first Joint Earth Imperial Research Station would focus on gravitational physics, allowing the Empire's scientists to build a proper foundation for their future advancements. Remember, she instructed the Imperial science team, the goal isn't just to use the technology, but to truly understand it. Each principle you master opens the door to dozens of new applications. High Commander Dex Thor, one of the last holdouts among the traditionalists, watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. His own ship had been retrofitted with Earth's safety systems, the superior technology impossible to deny. We thought we were bringing civilization to a primitive world, he mused to Admiral Parker. Instead, you showed us what true civilization looks like. Not better, Parker corrected gently, just further along the path. Every species walks it differently, but the destination is the same, understanding ourselves and the universe around us. The departure ceremony began in Earth's Great Assembly Hall. Representatives from both civilizations gathered to witness the signing of the First Guardian Accord. The agreement formalized Earth's role as mentors while preserving the Empire's autonomy. Guidance without domination. Protection without submission. Let this mark not an ending, but a beginning, Ambassador Matthews announced to the gathered crowds. Earth welcomes the Imperial Confederation into the community of protected civilizations, not as subjects, but as students who will one day become teachers themselves. As the Imperial fleet prepared to return to their territory, now equipped with proper understanding of their technology, Earth's defense platforms created a farewell display. Gravitational fields wove patterns of light through space, a demonstration of the artistry possible when science was truly mastered. Will you continue to watch over us? A young Imperial officer asked Dr. Richardson during the final preparations. Of course, he replied with a smile. But not just to protect you from danger. We'll be watching to celebrate your achievements, to guide when asked, and to learn from your unique perspective on the universe. Admiral Parker transmitted the final clearance codes as the Imperial fleet engaged their new drives. The ships moved with grace and precision, their modified systems working in harmony with the natural laws of spacetime rather than fighting against them. "Safe journey," she broadcast to the departing fleet. "Remember what you've learned here. True power comes not from dominance, but from understanding. Earth will always be here, guarding the stars until others are ready to share in their stewardship." As the last ships disappeared into properly controlled FTL jumps, leaving no temporal distortions in their wake, Parker turned to her staff. "Update the quarantine logs," she ordered. "Mark the Imperial Confederation as a success story, and prepare for our next challenge. There are always more civilizations out there, reaching for the stars before they're ready to grasp them."